Welcome to Use Your Words podcast. Today we're going to be talking about something that's happened recently in the scientific community. Recently, scientists have confirmed that they've been able to grow successfully a monkey-human hybrid. In 2017, they also grew a pig-human hybrid as well. What are the ethical questions, well, from Christianity as well as from non-Christian sides? Let's take a look at that.
He was stroking. Oh, yes, he was stroking my leg with his foot. So I just like pulled out of the pants and I just like ripped him because it's like pop, 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 pop. So now I ripped my pants while recording a podcast.
All right.
The things never end.
Nope.
Aaron, I'm glad you are holding your head in shame at listening to that. It means you're growing as a person.
No, I'm not.
Well, welcome to another episode of Use Your Words podcast. I am Paul, once again joined by Aaron Johnson, and he was literally cradling his head in his hands at listening to that. Just the cringe coming back to him.
I immediately thought of that. What was that? The one GIF that Andy sent with the dude had head in his hands and he looked up hopeless to find that GIF. Yeah, that's exactly what's going through my mind.
Well, Aaron, you are not hopeless.
Not yet.
Anyways, welcome to another episode of Use Your Words podcast. Welcome to May 2021, where we are celebrating 15 days of slow spread in so many different ways. Just kidding. No, I say that just as the fact that we're a year plus now into, well, we're over a year, like a year, 3 months now, 2 months. I can do math into pandemic life.
Yeah.
And things are maybe finally starting to get back to normal. Who knows? And right as things are starting to get back to normal, then we start hearing about all these crazy scientific experiments happening across the world. We have the people, I almost said the scientists over in Israel that they said they were successfully able to grow a mouse fetus up to halfway of its full term. They aborted it before it came to full term, but they were able to grow it inside of an artificial womb, like outside of the human body, the mouse body, the mouse body, like essentially like in a plastic bottle. And this is the first time they were able to successfully grow animal fetus to like half term outside of a actual body. So they're like, oh, this is kind of cool. Well, at the same time, you then have a combined Chinese US based science team that said, hey, you know what? We successfully grew a monkey human hybrid. Congratulations. And we grew it to 14 days. Now, this follows hot on the heels of 2017, where they were growing a hybrid chimera pig human hybrid as well in the lab environment as well. And doing this recently has brought up a bunch of, I guess you could say, moral questions, as well as scientists saying, hey, maybe we should be allowed to grow these embryos in petri dishes longer than 14 days, now that we can actually grow them up for 14 days.
Let's see how long we can get this to go.
Exactly. So, because the reason that's happening is there are laws on the books in multiple countries. I think there's about 12 countries around the world that have this. It's also kind of just as a scientific, ethical practice as well, that when you're growing an embryo in a petri dish, you can only grow it up to 14 days. There is a 14-day rule and law here in the U.S., as well as the UK, Australia, New Zealand, to name a couple other countries, where you cannot grow an embryo in the petri dish more than those 2 weeks, regardless of if it's a human. Primarily, they wrote it for human, but if it's a human hybrid, it still follows under that rule. Now, if it's like a mouse only, or like something like that, like an animal, that there's different rules for that, and that and that can still happen. It's not it can't happen type deal. But you have that going on, and people are starting to go, well, now that we can keep an embryo alive for 14 days, they're like, imagine what we could learn if we could keep it alive for 28 days. And I'm like, oh, this is just going to kick the can down the road of let's just go from 28 days to 56 days to full term. Let's just let it be born and see what happens. And
see what we can teach it.
And it's not like chimeras are rare, I guess you could say. And I say that because they have, now it's rare in breeds that are, and yes, I'm saying human as an animal breed here, but it's rare in breeds that are not exactly like the closest together. And people go, but monkeys and humans are so close. Yeah. If you look at the total number of genealogy components, yes, we're going to be real close, but we're still real far away from a monkey. But that being said, we're close enough where medical things tend to work the same between, the two of us.
Right.
But they do also have like chimera research where they have created a chimera mouse rat. So it's a mouse that was injected with rat stem cells and grew up, and it has characteristics of both mice and rat in it. And so you have all that going on too.
Kind of wondered. I always just figured a rat was a bigger version of a mouse. I don't think there'd be much difference between them.
Yeah, but they're pretty close. They're not like human monkey.
No,
or
that's a lot.
Human
farther.
pig.
Yeah, it's a lot farther. The other thing I knew about like pigs and stuff like that, as far as it came to being related with humans, is wouldn't they use like pig skin for certain surgeries for people?
Oh yeah,
yeah. That's the only thing I ever knew.
Yeah, especially if you have like a bad burn and you need some skin immediately, they will use that. They'll graft that on until your skin is able to grow back and everything.
Yeah.
But now what they're trying to do is what they're doing is with these chimeras is the hope. Here's the hope, and here's where PETA's going to get on board.
Well, okay, yeah, that's kind of like one of the first things that popped in my mind about like, where's PETA at for all this kind of stuff?
Oh, I'm sure they're going to get on board real quick. So what they were looking to do with chimeras is essentially grow an animal with human organs in it to then harvest the organs from the animal. So essentially their plan is to grow an animal to harvest it. Okay, and let's be fair. We grow cows, we grow chickens, we grow fish to harvest them for food. Okay.
Yeah.
And PETA's all up in arms about that. But and okay, I get it. At least PETA's being consistent. But they haven't made a stink about this yet. And I say yet because I have a feeling they will eventually at some point.
I think, how long has this all been going on?
Not that long.
Not that long?
It's been something that they have been researching for a while.
Yeah.
Again, 2017 was the first time they were successfully able to get
a pig and human.
Yep, going. And they terminated the fetus before it came to term.
Yes. I remember you wasn't it Heather and I were talking about this. I mean, we talked about it for a little while or whatever upstairs when we first heard when you heard brought it up, whatever. And that did bring up a lot of interesting questions as far as, well, I mean, one, I guess when you get in the whole moral side, especially for like Christianity's side of stuff, it's like we're trying to create some new, I guess you could almost say species to a point, but it's not because it's still human, but it's part pig. I don't know.
Well, yeah, it would be almost a new species in a way, a new type. But again, they're not like trying to make this new species, this new breed
pigmen
they're not trying to make pigmen to walk around and kill you.
We're making a real life Minecraft.
Yeah, they're not doing that. What they're trying to do is they're trying to grow hey, we're going to grow that pig so that Johnny can have a liver.
Yeah. So I guess, and that's where I was as you started talking about that. So it was going to be a pig body, or like what?
So they're going on multiple ways, but the way that they're trying to go is like an animal body. So in this case, a
Yes,
pig body,
pig.
or in this other case, it was a monkey body that they were starting to grow with human.
Insides.
Essentially, yeah, they were using human genomes to create human organs on the inside.
How do they do this stuff?
That they're manipulating the DNA on multiple levels. It's a little bit. I don't have all the information on that because, geez Louise, I am not a DNA scientist. I will admit that fully outright. But
Do
they
you
are
know a DNA scientist.
new. I don't.
I don't either.
But so what they're doing is they're essentially they're growing in this case. But let's go back to the pig and the monkey one. They're growing the monkey body and then they're injecting essentially human stem cells into it to kind of manipulate it to then grow the human organs inside of it. And it's been a varying success. You know, when they were doing the monkey one, they did 20 embryos, they said.
Okay.
And of those 20 embryos, only in the end, only 4 of them still had traces of human genomes in them.
So we're about to have like a Planet of the Apes someday?
Well, thankfully, they terminated all 20 of those.
That we know of. No. Because then, I mean, would they, if they're putting human DNA stuff into it, I mean, how much like this would they be if we actually let them grow, you know, I guess to term or whatever?
It depends on how much they're manipulating them in that. You know, if they're, again, what they're trying to do is try to get them just to grow the organs.
Yeah.
So if they're just growing the organs, you know, it's going to be like, oh, look, it's a pig in body and brain and everything, but it has a human heart, it has human lungs, it has human.
Right. Which I get. Now I'm kind of curious as to how different we are compared to the other animals, then, as far as hearts and like some of the insides go. Because I always kind of figured we'd all be sort of similar at some point.
And we're similar in a lot of respects. I mean,
Yeah.
we're similar enough where scientists are able to do medical tests. And when I say medical tests, like test out drugs and that on certain animals, because they're very analogous to how humans react from
Right.
Now, you couldn't practice necessarily open heart surgery on, like, let's say a rat heart or anything like that. But
And then have it be
but when you do like biology classes, did you ever do biology class in high school where you had to dissect the pig and dissect the cat and dissect the frog and the worm?
The biggest one I ever did was a pig.
Okay, but so obviously you've seen it side. Yeah, it's close to what a human
Right.
internal. It's not going to be 100%.
No. Well, and that's why I just wonder, is it just on a smaller scale for a lot of this stuff? Or, I mean, I guess, because then, I mean, I know for cows, they have, like 4 stomachs and stuff. Like, they have a whole weird inside playing field that they've got going on.
Right. Sorry for the background noise. The Hispanic church is playing upstairs. So
Yeah. That was about to be some hard rock going on in here for a second.
Anyways, go on.
I guess, you know, at the time when we first started talking about that, and so that's only 2017
That they
for the whole
first
pig and
that was the first pig and human embryo hybrid.
That is literally like the first thing that came to my mind was some sort of like pigman form, like creature being created. Because I wasn't sure. I was like, are they using like human, like I guess we would be human embryos or whatever for this, and then they're like inserting pig stuff or what? That's where I didn't know, I guess, completely what was going on.
It was non-human organism, so pig.
Yeah,
and the human cells were introduced into it.
because I would imagine if people were like using like human embryos, that would be a rage, and that would not go well. At least I would hope.
Right.
But for some of them scientists out there, I'm sure they'd be all about it. Which I don't like the thought of that. But
so
I don't know. It's weird.
So again, the main reason that they're doing this for is that they want to try to do something, for organs, because as they note on this article here from National Geographic, every 10 minutes a person is added to a waiting list for organ transplants.
And that's probably a lot more than people that have a donor sticker that are available at the moment.
Probably either that or, okay, let's say half the population has donor stickers, right?
Yeah.
You still have to wait for them
to die, or
unless it's like a kidney or something like that, where they're willing to give it up. But like, let's say it's your heart, Aaron, or let's say you had a donor sticker. I don't know if you do or not.
I think so.
Okay, that's fine. But you would, a lot of your organs, you'd have to wait for you to die in order for them to be of use.
Yeah, and then even at that, okay, I do have a donor sticker. At that point too, then even they have to be determined useful to a point as well.
Yeah, if you died with rabies, they can't use them because they will give rabies to other people and kill them.
Yeah. So, and I wonder how many people, because when I was filling out the information for license or whatever, and I asked you that question about wanting to be a donor or not. At first, when I first read that, I was like, shoot. I was like, so like, my uninformed mind was like, does that mean like if I get in an accident or something, like they can just like take my stuff? But I was just an idiot and didn't know any better. Yeah. And obviously that is not the case. I have to be dead, or it has to be something I can live without.
Yep. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people die every day due to waiting for organs?
Oh, no. Waiting for it? Oh, no.
Yeah. So like I said, every 10 minutes, a person is added to the waiting list for organs, transplants. How many people die every day waiting for an organ?
Oof.
And this is just in the
worldwide,
the U.S.
Which there's like 400 some million people in the U.S. I'm gonna say, I don't know, because I feel like 100,000 is a ton of people.
I said per day.
Yeah, that's a lot of people a day. Yeah. Never mind. I'm thinking year. A day. I don't know, 200 people.
I'm glad I don't live in your world.
Is that still a ton? Well, I guess. Well, how many would? Gosh, 200 people a day for 365 days.
Yeah.
How much would that be?
That's quite a bit.
Yeah.
22 people a day.
22 people a day. Well, I'm glad that is the case. Well, no, not total.
You're glad that it's that low compared to what your number was. Yes, I understand.
Yes, I know you understand me, but okay, so that's about 8,000 people a year.
Yep.
Wow. That's not as much as I would expect. But then, wow, I wonder what those cases are as far as what they need that causes them to die. I mean, I'm guessing heart being a big one, maybe. I don't know. Does it say what's the biggest one that people are waiting for?
No, it doesn't.
Oh, that's sad. So I guess I can see how that could be a good thing to.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's just it makes me question a few things morally on it.
Right.
Because if we're introducing human cells and human genes into an animal.
Because I mean, to a sense, what's that song? You and me are nothing but mammals. I'm trying to remember.
That's a very that's non-Christian worldview of that.
No,
yes,
I know. But I guess thinking about it in the way of to get the human aspect into it. I mean, it's not like you need to like have a. I mean, what do you need a dead baby for that, or what do you need for that? I mean, couldn't an adult just donate stuff for them to be able to do that? Or does that have to be something from like an unborn baby or?
Depends on how they do it. If they're using some stem cells, well, there's a couple ways they can get stem cells.
Yeah.
Again, none of them necessarily involve having to abort a fetus. Okay. Now, they could do that, abort a fetus to get some, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way.
Okay.
So that's the primary way right now that they're doing is doing the stem cell treatment essentially in the body of the animal while it's still in the fetus stage.
Yeah.
The other way is they do something what they call CRISPR, which is where they do gene manipulation. And so an example where they did gene manipulation of some mice, which they did that and they added in rat stem cells. What happened is the mice then actually grew organs that weren't even native to mice. So mice don't have gallbladders. Mice don't have them. But because they introduced the rat stem cells, All of a
That started
sudden,
happening.
they grew gallbladders in those mice
What the heck?
because they're part, mice, part rat. Again, it's not like it's coming from an aborted fetus. So
No.
So
Yeah. I guess that would be my main concern as far as getting the human element in there. How are they going about doing that?
yeah, and there's a couple ways they can do it.
Yeah.
Now it's like some of those cells that they could introduce. They are talking about different ways they can introduce those cells. Right now they're doing it mostly through stem cell and CRISPR, that method. But again, it's a very early on in their research.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that that's how they're going to do it going forward.
Right.
Because again, like I said, they just created that first wonderful
Batch of baby monkey humans.
human. Yeah. And those are the macaque monkeys specifically is what they grew.
I don't know what kind of monkey that is. I don't know how big
They're
or small it
crab-eating
is.
monkeys.
Crab-eating monkeys.
Yeah. So they're the monkey fetuses that they introduced the humans into. And those are the ones that only at the end of the 14 days, only a few still had human components to them.
Yeah.
But the fact that there were human components in the monkeys was, yay.
Interesting. Yeah. I remember, what was one? I'm trying to think of one of our part of our conversation when we had the whole pig thing going on.
Well, part of the conversation is, okay, let's say that came to term, right?
Yeah.
Does it have a soul?
That's exactly what I was going to ask. And I would say no, I think, as of right now. Yeah, I don't know. I would say no.
And see, that's where it gets a little fuzzy for me. And I know in our conversation that we had back then, we kind of came up with probably not.
Yeah.
Because, we were going back to, it was actually something that Pastor Dave taught on that day, where I was talking about how you have to be born of water and of the Spirit and all that. And we were also talking about some other things going on. And we're like, it makes sense that no, they probably wouldn't have a soul. But, that's, where you're growing it to, where it's an animal pig body, where it just has some human organs.
Yeah.
What if you did a true hybrid where the pig came out and 10 months later it looked up at you, Aaron, and goes, Daddy.
I'd be a little bit creeped out about that. Yeah, that would be a little freaky. I guess I would still say it doesn't have a soul. If it's between human and animal, I would still say no.
And I could see that causing some interesting conversations in the Christian church over.
Because, it's like you look at, they've been able to train animals and make them smart. If you're going to throw the human element in there,
there's one thing
I'd imagine it would make them smarter. But
there's one thing between being able to train an animal and make them smart,
and one to just develop that.
And it's, well, as I say, it's a whole different thing when an animal has a conscience. And they're sentient. When all of a sudden you have a very sentient, self-aware creature that is able to talk and communicate and show emotion and everything. And people go, but my dog shows emotion. Yeah, my dog is going to get angry or sad, but it's not able to communicate it in the most frequent way. And it's not exact, and people are going to get upset with this. Dogs, yes, they're sentient, but they're not intelligent like humans are in any way. People go, but my dog is so smart. Trust me, I know dogs are smart. They're not the smartest things in the world.
Well, right.
And then you have the whole concept of humanity was made from the ground, and then God breathed in, gave breath to humanity. That's where we get our soul. That's where we get, because it says humanity was made in the image of God.
Uh-huh.
What starts happening when you start combining that image of God with an animal? Do we bring that image with us?
No.
Or do we leave it just in the humanity?
Wait, what do you mean, do we bring it with us, or do we?
Like, you have a half animal, half human. Does that half human have bring the soul concept with?
At that point, yeah, I would say no, mainly because it's using something that, well, granted, everything, I guess, speaking of being made in the image of God, and some animals weren't.
Here's how I would answer this, Aaron.
Okay.
Could you reproduce with a rat naturally?
No.
Okay. Then it's probably
That's not going to happen.
Yeah. So because the fact that we kind of jam our cells into it,
It's
doesn't
not going to give it a soul.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's so as far as that goes, that would be my thought on that. Is it still right to do? I guess I'm not comfortable with the thought of it. It's kind of weird. I don't know. Because I think I don't know. I would say animals are smart for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm not disagreeing.
They can learn. Now, can they learn to the abilities that we can? I would say no.
If we ever have a rocket scientist monkey, I'm in trouble.
Right. I say I don't think. Now, granted, I'm afraid of just the overall. Gosh, and I'm including myself in this, but just how smart humanity is as a whole now, anyways. We're still getting smarter, but there's a whole lot of still. I would say there's kind of a lot that aren't kind of on that bandwagon of getting smarter, and me being one. I guess it depends on what you're, trying to get smart about, and that's a different thing too. Because everybody can, work on their own things and develop, just knowledge on individual things. It's just what are people actually putting time into? Because for me, obviously, I am no scientist by any means. I enjoyed science class. I enjoyed biology and that when I was in high school. That was really exciting for whatever reason. I don't know why.
You liked cutting into the pigs, didn't you?
No, I did not like that.
Okay, so you're not the new Dexter. Got it.
No. I did not enjoy that. The things I've dissected where it was the pig, it was a frog. Well, one was an owl pellet. That was nothing. The weird one was a pig eye. That one made me cringe because I was thinking about my own eye every time. No.
Yeah. And as you notice, when you were dissecting the pig eye, it was probably pretty close to what a human eye would be. So there are some things that are very analogous in other animals to humans, which is why we use a lot of them for research and testing and learning and experimentation.
Right. Now I do wonder though, because I remember, I don't know, I was probably the Nature's Metal thing or whatever, but it was showing different eyes from different animals and stuff like that, and the differences there are for each individual one. And it was insane to see how different the eye is for, obviously for creatures that live underwater. And then there's goats versus, there's goats. They showed a ton of different. There's the dog, the cat, whatever. They just showed a very close up, high definition image of the eye, and the differences just among all of the animals and creatures is insane. So it's. I guess I look at it. If you put a human aspect in the thing, it was could that even make it worse for the animal? To if it's just the animal and it grows up to be an animal and it's got human characteristics to it or whatever, I was is that going to be worse for them? Because being of the mind of having a creator, he created each of them for their own specific purposes.
And then here we come along and be ooh, let's play.
Let's throw some things into the mix here and see what happens. So I feel like that would be doing more damage than good.
So what you're saying is reality is not Minecraft.
Yeah.
Or we shouldn't be playing around with everything. Yeah.
No.
So we have all this going on, right? And this made me think of something else that kind of, I guess, and I mentioned it earlier. Human embryos can be played upon, grown and played with in a petri dish for up to 14 days.
Yeah.
That
a human embryo.
Just a pure human embryo.
Human embryo.
And that's part of this where they have to do this research as well. With all this is then
Right.
they're researching human embryos as well. And I'm like, that doesn't sit too well with me.
Yeah, when you start, I guess, as far as experimenting on human embryos, I guess I'm kind of surprised that's allowed. Because it is a living thing, right? Is it not?
Well, let's go into how various people define things. You have the very pro-choice movement, which says it's a clump of cells and not a living thing until it's out of the birth canal. Then it's a human.
Yeah, no.
But then you also have, Christians, a pro-life movement, who say as soon as it's fertilized, it's a life.
Yeah.
Which at that point, if it's an embryo, that's where it doesn't sit well with me. Like that's a human being that was created
and now just used as a science experiment.
Used as a science experiment for 14 days. Yes, thankfully, because it's just a clump of cells. This sounds like I'm going into the pro-choice side, but I'm not. Okay, so this was a question you asked earlier before we recorded.
Yeah.
You asked what the difference was between an embryo and a fetus. So in scientific terminology, there actually is a distinction between the two.
Okay.
So an embryo is the first 9 weeks. Now, what that means is, what they essentially say is that it's essentially think of it as the foundation, the framework of the baby.
Yeah.
You that's what it is. The embryo. So that's what that is. It's the important systems of the body are formed during that time.
Right.
The fetal period, which is after 9 weeks, that's more about growth and development. So it can survive outside in the outside world. So in that embryo stage, it's growing the essential organs that you need to even survive. So while the child's systems might not all be there like visually, they're growing, they're starting to develop, they're starting to grow and everything, and you're experimenting on a human, which I'm surprised that's legal.
Yeah, I agree. I can't believe that's a thing. Especially since no, I guess I can see why it's a thing.
Right.
But,
and it's a thing is because they're trying to figure out how to grow essentially people. You always hear that term test tube baby, you heard which is a horrible term for people who go through IVF, and that's a bad term. It's not a test tube baby. No, they're actually trying to help people who can't have a child but want a child, and maybe they're having some trouble. As we've talked about, we're having some population problems in the world, essentially, with certain people. Right. And those people who are like, I want a child but I can't, IVF is a way to artificially impregnate, and hopefully help them have a child. They're obviously they're taking the sperm and the egg outside of the body, they're fertilizing it, and then they're implanting it, not implementing it. They're implanting it after, the time of like, okay, you're ovulating. Okay, it's now time to implant it. It's now time to do take these drugs, hopefully get it to, embed inside the uterine wall and then grow into a full child, full to term.
I believe I have a relative that has done this. And I don't think it's been successful for them.
Yeah, it's not always successful.
No, yeah.
And there is still a chance of failure even doing it this way, in this controlled way, because the body still has its own thing that it does. And the body can do whatever it wants to do sometimes.
Right.
But so I understand why people are doing research, because, we probably wouldn't have figured out how to do stuff like that unless, we tried. Now here, if you go, well, you can't do any experimentation on embryonic things, okay, then how would they develop the IVF treatments? Because there would be a chance of them losing the embryo then. So I understand that, and it's hard for me to reconcile that. I will admit that, and I want to read more into how I can reconcile that.
Right.
To allow for that. And I'm trying to be consistent. I'm trying to be where I understand why they use would want to be able to do the research for IVF treatments and stuff like that. But at the same time, just research for research to know that you're going to destroy the in the end. That doesn't sit well with me.
No, because as far as like abortion goes, I mean, overall, I don't know. Not good.
And we've talked about how there are some times where, in the past, I think, and Josh might have been around at the time, where we've talked about where abortion might become one of the only choices. You're going to put the mother's life in danger if they carry this to the baby to, and at that time it's them. It's that family choice.
Right.
I'm not going to say over here, well, if the mother's in danger, they have to get an abortion. At that point, it's still the mother's choice. It's still, her partner's, her husband's choice. They got to decide together what they're going to do with them and the doctor and be well informed.
Yeah.
But if it's, it's just inconvenient.
It's an inconvenience.
Then I have less.
Yeah.
I have less where I'm like, well, do whatever you want. It's more like, really, it's an inconvenience. Then maybe you shouldn't be having sex like that.
Well, and then obviously the other case that's brought up is what if it's a rape case?
Yeah, and there are edge cases like that.
Yeah.
In edge cases like that, mother's life at stake, rape case, all that sort of stuff. Those need to be handled independently from the main stuff.
From just, we thought we were being safe, but then I ended up getting pregnant. But I don't want a baby though.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's.
And I say this as someone obviously who has never been put in that position of having to abort a child or anything.
No. Yeah.
I'm not saying that someone who goes and says, I'm going to abort a child is an evil person who's mindless and emotionless. It affects them afterwards. There are multiple people online who have posted, their stories about, what happens after they
have an abortion,
and some of the detrimental mental effects it had. Of course, then you also have on the other side people who go, shout your abortion, and think that that's a rallying cry of freedom somehow, which I don't get that one, but whatever. They can do whatever they want with that. That's the beautifulness of America. You are free to do that. I may disagree with you on it, but you are still free to do it. And you may disagree with me, and I'm still free to do what you want to do. What I want to do.
The one thing, I guess, again, like I said, I don't, I'm not one for abortion, but I guess the one way I do look at it is, for those that, and I know there's different like views as far as religions go or whatever, but I always kind of figured, as a baby, you can't make really a decision for yourself. You're dependent on, the mom and stuff like that to care for you, keep you alive, feed you, do all that stuff. It's like not like you really make logical decisions or whatever as a baby. But so as where I'm getting with this is, for those that are aborted, it's, I guess, as far as I'm concerned, I or currently believe is that, they go to heaven, because it's not like they've had that chance to learn one about like Christ and stuff like that and make that decision of making a life choice to follow him. It's just a baby that's just never had the chance to grow. So I know I think, one of my teachers from back in the day, they believe that God would know the future of the baby had they lived, or kind of thing, and then known whether or not they would have given their life to Christ or not. So at that point, it's like either some go to heaven, some go to hell kind of thing. I'm just like,
Yeah, that's a whole free will versus predetermination conversation, which just, I know there's those various arguments out there.
Yeah. But I think I fall more under the free will section and just think that aborted babies go to heaven, which helps me feel a little bit better about it, but I still not that I like it. But So that's where I guess when we're talking about the embryos that are getting experimented on, if they being in our minds, as far as I'm concerned, is being a life, at that point, it's just another one hopefully going to heaven. But still, experimenting on embryos is interesting.
Yeah. So now the one good thing I will say about it, about them experimenting at 14 days is 2 weeks,
Yeah.
That's still well before embryos' nervous systems have developed to feel pain, at least. So, there is that good point.
Yeah.
So embryos, fetuses, they develop the ability to feel pain at about 20 weeks.
That was something I was thinking about bringing up too, was apparently there was a video made of an abortion, and it was, they're taking the baby out. Now, I guess I'm imagining it wasn't dead at this point, but I thought they kind of titled it the silent scream or kind of thing, because apparently it was looking like it was trying to scream. I'm imagining because of being in pain.
Yeah.
From an abortion, but that video has not really shown. So I was thinking about that, because I was like, well, at what point do they feel pain? And then I imagine once you're giving birth to a full-grown baby, I mean, it feels something.
Yeah, so about 20 weeks is when it starts to feel pain.
Talk about
is
abuse.
Which is 5 months about into the 9-month period.
And how far is abortion allowed?
Well, so there's various laws in various places. So you have things like late-term abortions, and some places allow up to. It's rare. I'll put that out, because people are always going, oh, so many late-term abortions. It's rare that you can find this place to allow you like a few days before birth. Most are within the first 2 trimesters. It's real easy to find an abortion. In the 3rd trimester and later, it's harder in most areas, but it's still possible. Right. So going back to the whole monkey embryo thing, I wanted to say the chimeras. I look at it and I have some questions from the Christian worldview on it. But even scientists who are in this field, are starting to raise some questions, some moral questions on this.
Okay.
And they're starting to say, at what point are we going too far? Because let's say they make a chimera monkey, right? And this chimera monkey, in his scenario, he's like, we can make chimera monkeys that have human sperm and eggs. What happens if a chimera monkey mates with another chimera monkey? And then you have a human embryo growing inside a monkey. That could be interesting. That could be deadly for either the embryo or the monkey itself. What happens if someone takes this monkey and brings it to full term then, and it has an intelligence where it is because even from the non-Christian side of things, from the pure scientific, they're asking the question of what happens if we give this monkey human-like intelligence and human-like will and human-like ability to communicate and think.
Oof.
What then?
Well, Planet of the Apes, man, that's what's happening. No, that'd be hard to actually happen. But
will it be hard to happen?
I mean, I would imagine yes, for it to get that far where they would have that many numbers to overtake, civilization.
And then, as far as laws go, should be regulated as just an animal, or should be regulated as human, or should be regulated as a hybrid. And then how do you do that when it comes to stuff like transportation?
I mean, if places give robots a right, if the monkey, human, chimera, or whatever became a thing, people are going to give it rights as a human would have rights. I already know it.
And then the last question I have for myself, if we do give an animal, because we start injecting human DNA, through various cells into monkeys and that, or pigs, and it has that intelligence, it's born, has that intelligence as a side effect, right? Is it ethical then to kill it to harvest its organs?
Ooh. Ooh. Haha.
Because now we're not talking about just a animal that we're there to cook and eat.
Right.
We're now talking
not just
about
a cow.
a sentient intelligence.
See, if people, it's funny seeing, I'm sorry, it is, I don't know, to me, it is kind of funny to see how people get so sensitive about, animals being killed for food. I mean, like cows. Now, for the places that, like, literally, I guess, do, like, basically abuse an animal to kill it, that's messed up. But, as far as, I don't know, just killing a cow to have it for food, like people knowing that people are super against that because it's like, oh, it's just a cow, like, oh, can save itself, whatever. And I was like, well, no, it can't. It's just to make food. I don't know. I find that kind of stuff funny. But if people are that sensitive about an animal a cow, like if these things became a thing, they would be all up in arms about that. They
Mhm.
would not want it to be used for just its organs or whatever because it's got a voice and it's got feelings and all that kind of stuff. I don't think it's okay for us to play God and trying to create things like that. I don't think it's okay. But I'm sure there's probably some people that are Christians, or at least say they're Christians, that have a defense for it. Do I personally know one yet? No, not yet. Maybe I do know one. That conversation's never been brought up.
As I say, and there's probably not a lot of people yet paying attention to the fact that this is something happening.
Right. No,
Uh,
I bet I could talk to a lot of some of my church friends, and they'd been like, "What? This is happening?" Yes. It was funny when I had brought up the whole thing about the testosterone levels going down. They're like, "What?" Like that was mind blowing to them. So yeah, there's weird stuff happening out there that none of us know about. And I feel like to some point, like I don't know. Sometimes I wish I wouldn't know about things that I have learned about, but at the same time, it's like I feel like it's a good thing to kind of learn about some of these things. Because then, I mean, if you don't know anything, if you don't know about it, you can't have an argument against it or for it, really. But it's like for some people are just like, oh, God's going to take care of everything, whatever. La-di-da. Don't have to worry about it. I'm like, I feel like we should be involved in different areas, of the world. It's like we shouldn't just read our Bible and leave it at that and not get involved in any other things. It's like
no,
we should have a knowledge of what's happening in the world to be able to talk about it.
Yeah, and just because we know about it and just because we keep up informed doesn't mean we have to agree with it. Doesn't mean we have to go, yes, this is the way. This
is the way.
I wasn't going for that, but
I know.
It's interesting seeing the two different variations of the Christian culture. Somewhere it's like the head in the sand ostrich, where it's like, I don't need to know anything about it. I just need to know this. And you have the other side of like, hey, you don't have to participate in it, but you should know about what's going on. Keeping your head in the sand is not going to help you in the future.
No.
And then you have some people in the middle that are just like, yeah, whatever, don't care either way.
Yeah.
And it's interesting just watching these things go on. And I feel like I keep coming back to that book, 1984.
Yeah.
Not 1984, not this one. Brave New World. That's what this one is. This one's before 1984. But this one in Brave New World, they grow people, embryos, in artificial wombs until they are born, and then they're able to manipulate all the embryos, all the growing fetuses with various nutritions and various chemicals to make them the ideal person for their society. And it's like, oof. So on one side, we have this research happening, and it's like, oh, good, we're going to be able to grow organs in pigs and monkeys and da-da-da. On the other side, we can control the world population as we go forward to grow the human exactly as we want them.
being in, I guess, still in the time of a pandemic, I was thinking, like, what if we, we're creating these things or whatever, but then what if we end up creating something deadly for the human race as a part of these experiments? Granted, I don't know how Corona happened. I don't know how it happened. Whatever. The only thing I remember was something about it was from a bat.
Yeah, that's what the leading theory is.
Yeah, but then I've heard that's not true, and it's
That's what I said.
else.
That's the leading theory. Yeah, they're still researching where Corona came from.
So I was just like, what if we created some other deadly thing in the process of doing all this experimentation with this stuff?
I don't think we'll create necessarily a disease, but we might create a new species of humanity that could one day replace us.
We'll be no more.
Yeah. We'll be removed from the earth by crab-eating monkey humans.
I don't know. I think we'll be taken away. If it comes to the point of either there being humans being taken over by crab-eating monkey things, or Christ coming back and doing his thing, I'm going to imagine Christ is going to come first.
Yeah. And a lot of these conversations about, hey, human chimera hybrids, that leads back to a lot of the CRISPR conversation that we had about, should we be editing our DNA to begin with? Now, I get it. While sometimes, it's like, oh, look, this child is going to be born with Down syndrome, and we could do this to maybe correct some of it. Should we, though? Is that something we should be doing? At the emotional heartstrings of a parent would say yes, because they want to give their child the best possible life. And I get that.
Wait, what was the question then again? I'm having a Gatorade Toy Story moment, I guess.
The question was, should we use CRISPR to edit
okay,
the
that's
genes? Yeah.
Okay, that's all right. That's no. All right, I'm still with you on that. I was thinking, for whatever reason, my mind went to either getting rid of a kid with Down syndrome or not.
Well, that's
you would be with CRISPR. You would be avoiding that happening.
Potentially. Like I said, the question is, should the parent be allowed to edit that out? And like I said, I understand, because, at that point, the heartstring of the parent is, I want my child to have the best possible life, and this is going to be a hindrance and all that. And you look at such revered scientific shows like Star Trek, and they had essentially in their timeline in the 2020s. So now, they had, I think it was called the eugenics war. Essentially, what it was were these gene edited people who tried to take over the planet, and essentially the whole world went to war with them and locked them away, and then shot them out in space and froze them. And then after that, because of that, they essentially outlawed on the earth gene editing. And then, so you couldn't, and only in the most dire circumstances, like to prevent like death of a child, before it was born, would they be allowed to edit the genes. Otherwise, you're born how you're born.
It is what it is.
And I find it funny that we're doing that, and we're looking at CRISPR, and we're not taking heedance and all that from these other shows are saying, hey, look, here's obviously they didn't know everything about it, but they're talking about this back in the 60s.
Wow.
They were talking about doing these things. What happens if we're allowed to manipulate the genes of people, and what happens, and what's that going to do to society as a whole, and what are the consequences of that going to be?
Huh. Wow. It's pretty intense.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd almost hate to, because again, when you talk about, every parent wants the best life for their kid or whatever. So if they knew they were going to have a kid with Down syndrome or something like that, I would be more so on the side of not manipulating those genes to try and make them something else.
And I'm saying this fully recognizing that both of us are not parents.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we don't have experience with that. So, we say that now.
I guess the reason I do say that, though, is, looking at in interacting with people that have Down syndrome or some kind of mental, illness or whatever it may be, it's I've really enjoyed interacting with those people. I guess I know. Just even back at one of the churches I went to, I mean, they had some people with like Down syndrome and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like they're the most, well, one, like I guess you could say talkative to a point. Well, some of them are, not all of them are, all the time. But they're the most like affectionate people, and it's like, I don't know. It's like sometimes at times it's like I wish we would all be like that in a ways where it's like they all like I don't know seem to have more of a love and care for each other than your average human does,
Mm-hmm.
because it just naturally comes out of them, and that's like something that's so cool to see. And it's, I mean, you could say it's like it's like I mean they have a childish sort of behavior to them in a sense, but in a good way, because you're talking about like having faith like a child in the Bible, whatever. Like we're supposed to have that faith as a child, like a child, where you get excited about, one in the aspect of the Bible of being about Christ and stuff like that, and that's something we should, cling to and hold on to and get excited about. And too many people, I mean, evil Christians, non-Christians, whatever, grow up in life, you obviously have all the hard things that hit you and stuff like that. We become a grumpy people. But it's like, whenever I like interact with people that have Down syndrome, it's like that doesn't control them. Like they still love hugs. They still will talk to you nonstop and enjoy your company and stuff like that. It's like, the think about getting rid of all those people. It's like, I mean, I would say they've taught, us normal, I say that in quotes because people can't see that, a lot about being grateful and thankful for stuff. At least in my opinion. So I would hate to I would hate to have something to get rid of the chance of having a kid with Down syndrome. Because they teach people a lot, I think. So no, don't experiment.
Any other comments, questions, roundabouts, tangents?
No, dude. No, I'm done talking. I'm done being like Josh. No, I'm not done being like Josh, but yeah.
So yeah, studying on embryos is it's not a one size fits all question answer scenario. The working on pure human embryos is a very moral, from a Christian point of view, very moral quandary, because you're playing with an actual human life.
Yeah.
Even at the age of 14 days, you're like, oh, but it's not a fetus. I don't care that it's not a fetus from the moment it is the conception takes place, which is the moment that the egg and the sperm meet and the fertilization occurs. The genes from the DNA from both combine.
That's life.
There we got life. And I understand the need for research into stuff like IVF and that. And how do you balance the two? When it's something where it's being researched, where it's the potential of a life being born, like they're going to try to implant the embryo to try to carry it to term. I understand that. But when it's, let me just see what I can grow in a petri dish for 14 days.
Right.
That's when I start having issues with it.
Yeah.
The whole concept of hybrid chimeras is going to be something that we need to pay attention to sooner and more often.